of writing. So to summarize what we have seen in the last day, so we've seen the definition of the lambda pi calculus modulo. And what is the theory in this framework? So it's given by a signature, which means a set of symbols, each a symbol equipped with some dependent, and a set of derived rules, oriented equations, defining so to see how to encode logics, we are going to start with first order logic and how to encode first order logic in lambda pi. And then later we are going to see how to add more things to encode some other features and some other logics. Okay? So if you take a textbook on first order logic, how it is defined. So they start by explaining what are the terms. So set of terms built from function symbols of some regularity, and then you have the propositions. Same thing, so it's built from a set of predicate symbols with some givenarity, and then you can compose those predicates with connectives. And finally, the actual theory is a set of axioms in the language that you have defined here. And then, so you can build models if you want, but also we are interested in proofs. And so you need to define what is, among all the possible propositions, the ones that are provable. Okay. And for this, you usually use some deduction system, and we are going to use natural deduction. Okay. And so how is defined probability? So I guess, most of you know this very well. So for natural deduction, it's a relation that is defined inductively, where you have an environment with a set of assumptions, so a set of propositions that are the assumptions, your assumptions, and then the conclusion. And then you have rules, and for each connective, you have a number of introduction rules to introduce the corresponding connective and elimination rules to use it. Okay. So for instance, I didn't put all the rules here, but for the implication, so you have this introduction rule saying that to prove an implication, A or B, you add some A as assumption and then try to prove B. And for elimination, so if you have a proof, it's modus ponens. If you have a proof of A plus B and a proof of A, then you get the proof of B. And similar things for the other connectives like linear subquantification. And so this gives you a definition of what are the provable propositions. So let's try to represent this now in lambda pi. So first we need to represent terms. Okay. So for this we are going to assume a constant type I for typing all the terms. Okay. And so for each function symbols with summary, okay, we are going to map it to a function symbol in the logical framework with a type like this. So if it's of arity n, then I will have n rows and then 2. So like this, we can encode all terms into a term of type I. And we can do the same thing for propositions using a different type. Okay, so we use a new constant in the logical framework to represent propositions. Okay? And again, so for each predicate symbol of variety n, we introduce a symbol in the logical framework having this type. So it takes n arguments of type I terms and the proposition. And we can see the connectives as constructors on this proposition of types, of the type of proposition. So the true proposition, the negation is a constructor, so mapping a proposition to another proposition, and so on. And until now, it's first order, but here to represent first order terms, so and formula with quantifiers, we are going to use lambda calculus, so higher order abstract syntax. And so quantification like this for all xa can be represented as the application in the logical framework of some constant for rule with this type here to a function that maps an element x of type I to the representation of the proposition. So here we move from first order to higher order, and we use lambda abstraction to represent the quantified form. Okay. But okay, so now we have a representation of terms and propositions, so the deep embedding in the logical framework. And now we want to represent so axioms, the actual theory, and the provable propositions. Okay. So for this, as I mentioned yesterday, we are going to use the so-called Curie de Brin-Roy axomorphism. So we interpret proposition as types, and so this correspondence between proposition as types is something that has been remarked before, because if you remember the typing rules for simply type lambda calculus, and you look at the rules, the rules for natural deduction, there is a very precise correspondence between the two. And if you interpret the implication as the overall type and the overall quantifier as the dependent product. Okay. And this correspondence says that, okay, we can actually use the terms, the lambda terms of the lambda calculus to represent the proofs of natural deduction. And like this, and the idea is to annotate every assumption by a variable, so to give a name to this assumption. And then the introduction rule for implication corresponds to abstraction, the elimination rule to application, and the same thing for the universal quantifier. The only difference is that here we have a variable that is term, and here we have a variable that is the proof of the proposition. And by doing so, so we are going to see how to implement this in the logical framework. So we reduce proof checking to type checking. And so to do so, because the problem is that currently the type prop, the type, but the elements, the terms of type prop are not types themselves. Okay? So we need to, in some way, interpret propositions into types in the logical framework. Okay, so we introduce this new symbol, proof. And so given a proposition A, so proof of A is a type. It's the type of proofs for the proposition. Okay, but now we get some problem, because if, for instance, I take the proposition A implies A, I would like to say that the identity is the proof of this type. But the identity on the type proof of A is proof A, row proof A. It's not proof of A, row A. Okay. For the identity to be of this type, as we would like, we need to identify these two types in some way. Okay. And this is here that we are going to use rewriting. Okay. And indeed, we can define the meaning of the implication by defining what are the proofs of A row B, A implies B, sorry. We say that a proof of A implies B is a function from proof of A to proof of A. And this interpretation, it is due to Brouwer, Eyting, Kolmogorov, but here we have a concrete implementation in the logical plan. Okay, so let's assume we add this rule, then we can check that we can indeed recover the introduction and elimination rules of natural deduction. Okay. So you remember, so the introduction rule of implication, so in natural deduction, this is this one. So if we do a translation, so the premise is this one. So assuming that we have a proof of A, X, and a proof T, a proof of E, okay, then we can form the abstraction, okay, and we get the proof of A, that's rho E. And by using the type conversion rule, rewriting, so we get that this abstraction is indeed also a proof of A of B. And we can do the same thing for elimination. We can derive the standard rule for the elimination of implication using the typing rule of lambda pi, and using conversion wherever it's needed. Okay. So now we have seen how to handle implication, how to handle the universal quantifier. We can do the same trick. Okay. The only difference here is that we will need some dependent type to represent the proofs. And the idea is that the proof of for all A, so it means for all x, A of x, is a map, a function taking an element x in the domain and providing a proof of that x satisfies the property A. What about the other connectives now? Okay, so we have implication, we have universal quantification. What if we want to represent conjunction? Okay. So one way to handle conjunction is to interpret like this. So with this rule, it's a standard kind of impredicative or higher order encoding of conjunction. Okay, but the quantification is in the logical framework, not in the logic itself. Okay. And so we say that how to prove that A and B holds is the same as proving that any proposition C holds if whenever I have a proof of A and B implying this proposition.
And didn't you see that inductive types? So why cannot you use this?
So at the moment, so A I start from the lambda pi calculus with nothing else, no inductive types. I'm not going to use inductive types actually. So what I've shown yesterday is that there is in lambda pi a command to generate induction principles to some extent, but it doesn't mean that I really have inductive types. It's just a command to ease the definition of inductive definition. But you don't need this. You can just give a set of constant poles. Okay? That's why even if, I mean, the current inductive command in lambda pi is limited, it's not a problem because you can always define the inductive types and the induction principle that you want by hand. It's always possible.
But here you could also define a conjunction within the same defined by hand, right? I mean, is it just a convenience to use this impredicative encoding, or is it rooted somehow for some reason?
So yeah, because it's kind of more modular in the sense that if you fix the set of proposition as if you define the set of proposition as an inductive set, then it's closed. Okay, you fix once and for all the connectives. Okay, but perhaps I mean some people can come up with some new connectives and some in some other logics and so on. So for the moment we don't need to do this. So the type of proposition is open. We leave it open. So does it work to do this? And we can check together, for instance, that we can recover the introduction rule for conjunction. Okay, so which is this one. So if you have a proof of A and a proof of B, then you get a proof of A and B. Okay, and because we have this rewriting rule, actually, so proof of A and B is this thing. Okay. And so we can build a lambda term having this type. Okay. So it is here. So you assume given small a, so proof of big A, small b, proof of big B, and then you assume a proposition C, prove that H that A implies B implies C, and then you just apply H, A, and B to get a proof of C. So perhaps you already have seen this kind of encodings before. And we can do the same thing for the elimination rules. So here I just first projection. Okay, so to summarize, because now we have a complete encoding of first order logic and typed first order logic in lambda pi. So we have a type for terms, and for each function symbol, so same function symbol but with this type here, type for propositions, and so this is the signature for connectives. We have this proof symbol that maps proposition to types, and then if in your theory you have some axiom A, you just need to add a new constant small a that is the proof of A. So you assume that A is true. And then you have these rules. Okay. So I do not give the rules for all the connectives, I mean the usual connectives. But it's possible to do. Okay. And so this defines the theory, okay, representing so first order logic in lambda pi. And so we can define so the encoding of terms. This is straightforward, and the encoding of propositions. So the only difference is that so for simplification, so we introduce this abstraction, and we give names to the assumptions, okay, by introducing variables. And then we can now translate proofs in first order logic in natural deduction into lambda terms in lambda pi. Okay, so what are the properties of this encoding? So every term, first order logic term, is mapped to a term of type big I. A proposition is mapped to a term of type prop. And the proof of a proposition A is mapped to a term of type proof of the translation. Okay. So it's we could say that it's a correctness theorem, okay, because something that is provable in first order logic is mapped to a type that is inhabited. Okay. But we may wonder now if we, by some other way in the logical framework, we find a proof of the translation of some proposition, whether it is actually provable in first order logic. And this is a conservativity property. Okay? And it's important to check also this property, because in a translation, you could imagine to map every provable proposition to true. Okay? It's not very interesting. And so it's possible to prove this, that if proof of A is inhabited, then indeed A was provable, is provable in first order. And how to prove this? We can use the fact that the rewrite system that I have, this rewrite system here, is confluent and terminates together with beta reduction. So for confluence, it's not difficult to see, because you see that we have what we call an orthogonal system, so there is no critical pair. And for termination, it's a little bit more complicated, but not so much. Okay. And so then we have that every term in the logical framework has a normal form. Okay. And then it's easy to see that we can translate back any normal form to a first order a term or a proposition or a proof in first order logic. Okay. So now we know how to handle first order logic, and now we are going to play and see how to extend this to handle other kind of logics. Okay. So first thing is what if we want to have several sorts? So multi-sorted first order logic. So for instance, if we want to do geometry, then we have a sort for point, line, and circles. And it's not a problem. We can just introduce some new time constant for each sort in the first order logic theory, and with some corresponding quantifier. Okay, and the same rule as we had. What about polymorphic first order logic? Okay. So an important remark to make is that there is no polymorphism in lambda pi, in the lambda pi calculus. We only have simple types and dependent types. We cannot quantify other types. Okay? So how to represent polymorphic systems into the lambda pi calculus. Okay? And the idea is to do what we have done for propositions and proofs, also on sorts and sets to some extent. Okay? because we want to be able to quantify on many different sorts.
Sorry, stupid question. What do you mean by first order logic?
So
I can imagine several meanings.
Yeah. So okay. So this is you can see this as an extension of multi-sorted first order logic, where instead of having just a finite number of sorts, you may have an infinite number of sorts. But what if you want to quantify on all possible sorts?
Okay.
So polymorphic first order logic is about this. Okay.
Yeah, I can roughly imagine.
Yeah. So this is the kind of logic that is used in some tools like Y3, for instance, if you want to do program verification. So they use this kind of logic to, for program verification. And so how to do this? The idea is that because we have potentially an infinite number of sorts, okay, so we introduce a new type constant set to represent these sorts, okay? And so we have the elements of set are sorts that these elements, okay, it's a deep embedding. They are terms, they are objects, they are not types, okay? So like we had propositions are objects and not types, we needed a function to interpret propositions into types, okay? We can do the same thing for sets, okay? So you can see these elements, the elements like iota as a code for some set, actually, okay? And the element function is going to interpret those codes as types. Okay? So, for instance, if you have some set for element for natural numbers or for real numbers, and then you would interpret this code as the type, the actual type of natural numbers and real numbers. Okay? And then so you can have now a symbol for quantification that takes some additional argument, which is the set on which you want to quantify, and a proposition on the elements of this set. Okay. And so it's just a generalization of the type and the rule that we have seen before in the first order case. Okay. Except so you have this dependent type, and we use this element function to interpret those sets as types. Okay, and so what if we want to go further and to go really higher order, so to be able to quantify on sets, set of sets, and so on, okay, and go on until we reach higher order logic. So one remark, so here you see that the set type you can, and the quantifier here, you could imagine to define more precisely exactly what are the possible elements, the possible sets, and how you can quantify on those sets, okay, in many different ways. So it would be easy to limit quantification to second order logic or third order logic and so on, by just adding some elements in the set type for doing this. So now we are going to see how to do at any order, but it could be possible to restrict this. So what if we want to add quantification on functions, for instance? For doing this, we just need to add a new constant, okay, this funny row, okay, to represent function types into the set type. Okay? And then to say how we interpret this funny row as a type. Okay? And here we say, okay, the elements of A row B are the functions at the meta level, so from element of A to element of B. And so, because we have this rule for quantification, you see that if A is, in fact, A over B, okay, and element of A over B is the function from element of A to element of B, you will get the quantification here on functions from element of A to element of B. Okay, so what is nice to see is that by adding just the constant and the rewrite rule, you get new and more powerful logic easily. Okay. So if we assume that we have this and all the things that we have seen before, okay, so we have some kind of logic where we can quantify on any function, okay, but we cannot quantify on propositions. Okay. And usually in higher order logic, it's possible. You can say, for instance, that for all proposition P, P implies P. It's a meta theorem that you can formalize in higher order logic. So how to do this? What do you think we need to do to have quantification on propositions? Okay. So to have quantification on propositions, we need so quantification is already defined. Okay. So we need that X should be of type prop. Okay. How do we get that X is of type prop? We need some element A such that some set A such that the elements of this set are propositions. Okay. And this can be easily done by just adding a new element in set. Let's call it omicron. Okay. And to define the interpretation of omicron as a type as the type of proposition. Okay. So just adding this, then we get quantification on propositions. So it's also called impredicativity. So we get some impredicative system here. And we can continue adding some more features. So for instance, dependent implication. Okay, so what's dependent implication? This is a dependent version of the implication. It means that for the second argument of the implication, you assume that you have a group of the first argument. It may look a little bit strange, but actually this is what you can find in the PVS proof assistant. So in PVS, all the connectives are actually dependent. So the conjunction is dependent, the disjunction is dependent, implication. Okay. And so how to get this? By adding a new, new constructor in the type of proposition, okay, and a new interpretation, and the interpretation for this constructor, which is using dependent types. But we can also do the same thing on sets. Okay, have a dependent function type on sets. Okay, so this is the dependent version of the row that we have seen before. Okay. So you have two kinds of dependent types here. So dependent types in the logic and in the framework. And also, we can have proofs in object terms. So until now, there is a complete separation between what are the objects of the logic and what are the proofs. Okay, that in systems like Coq, Agda, and so on, everything is put together. It's possible to use proofs. Okay, when defining objects. So, for instance, if you want to have a total function for division on natural number, often people, what they do, they take as function, so they take three arguments. The first one, so natural number, the second one, another natural number, and they take a proof that the second one is different from 0. And then return an element. So if you want to formalize this kind of type in the logical framework, then you need to be able to quantify on proposition. So define a set using some proposition here. In fact, that Y is a statically included. So already you can remark that with all these extensions, so there are some patterns. Okay, so in the rules that we consider, either we quantify on a proof and we get a proof, or an element and an element, or a proof and an element. Okay. And so there are like 4 different cases. And perhaps you remember what we have seen yesterday about the Baran-Rex lambda cube. Okay. And so we can do some parallel with this. So you remember perhaps in PTSEs, so where we have this nice cube, depending on what you had from simply type lambda calculus, whether you add dependent types, polymer types, or type constructors, and it's defined by using these rules. Okay. And so you can do something similar in the lambda pi calculus, depending on the kind of rule, but rewrite rule now, not product rule, rewrite rule that you are going to allow. Okay. And you have 4 combinations, so proof, element, and so on, where in some ways the proof corresponds to type and element corresponds to type. And so it means that if you add all these rules, all these symbols, and all these rules, you will get an encoding of the calculus of construction.
Excuse me. The axes are swapped for polymorphic types because lambda 2 is the polymorphic.
Yeah, so this was this is the correspondence in PTSEs. I mean, this cube, okay, and yeah, the name are a little bit different. So when you are talking about logic, because here, so the arrow is the implication, okay. And so at the bottom you have the proposition, at the top you have the sets.
No, but I mean, if you move along the y-axis, you're getting lambda 2, but that's the polymorphic access.
Yeah, I think the polymorphic, polymorphic types and type constructors are just switched.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, these two lines?
on the diagram on the bottom.
Oh, you mean here? Oh,
Yeah, either one.
I mean, the two graphs are not consistent because you should switch polymorphic types with type constructors on the right diagram.
yeah, so the correspondence is not exactly that, right?
Yeah, I think polymorphic types are lambda 2 and type constructors are lambda omega bar.
Oh, you mean here?
And the,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
never
okay.
mind. That is important.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, and so then I can finally come back to this picture I've shown you just there. Okay. And now, I mean, you have all the ingredients to better understand what it means. Okay. Because all these symbols are the ones I presented to you before to encode different logics. So you have implication for all set element proof Omicron, the euro for quantification on function types, and more things, you know. And so you can split when you take the whole signature, okay. Then you have many things, and you can encode like calculus of and so on. But you can split in small pieces, you know. So if you consider only this symbol, then you will get minimal first order logic or even proposition logic. And depending on the constants and rules that you add, you will get different proof systems, okay? Up to higher order logic and the calculus of constructions and even further, okay? By adding some more quantification. Here, for instance, also, it's including some dependent pairs if you want proof irrevalence in the second argument, as it is used in the PVS proof assistant. And so another interest of this theory, okay, is that if you want to translate some theorem from one system to the other, then if you can encode your proof of your source system into this theory, okay, so perhaps your proof is not going to use all the symbols, but only a small part. Okay? And by looking at exactly what are the symbols that are used in your proof, you can determine to which other target system it's possible to translate that proof. And so, by using the techniques I've presented before, it's possible to generalize this to the functional pure type system. So you remember the definition of pure type systems. So this is the grammar of terms and types. Okay, so you have a set S of sorts, and then you have some axioms for typing the sorts. Okay, you say that the sort S1 is of type S2. Okay, and you have a relation for describing what are the possible products in this system. So if you have a domain in S1, in some sort S1, and a codomain in sort S2, then you say that the product is some sort S3. how to encode this in the lambda pi calculus. Okay? And so we are going to use the same trick, okay, as before, using these functions that interpret types or type codes into types. And so the encoding is as follows. Okay. So for each sort, we are going to introduce type to represent terms of that sort, and a function that is going to interpret those elements as types. And then, if we have an axiom saying that S1 is an element of S2, then we simply declare S1 as an element of type US. And for products, okay, so we have triples like this, S1, S2, S3 in a PTS, and we get, so remember that we are considering functional pure type system, so it means that S3 is completely determined by S1 and S2, okay, so that's why it's annotated just by S1 and S2, and so you have a product. If you have so a set in the universe S1 and a set B, so universe S2, that may be dependent, okay? Then you get something in the universe S3. And then you have rules defining those functions. So if S1 is of type S2, okay, then you need to interpret S1 as the universe S1 itself. And the product, okay, is interpreted as the product over the corresponding universes. Okay. So here you get the encoding, and you can prove that it has nice properties. So you can prove the correctness, so that every weight type term in the PTS is mapped to a weight type term in the logical framework. And for conservativity or competence, it's more complicated because you may not have termination. Okay? Some PTS are not terminating. And also, so to conclude on this topic, what is interesting to remember is that you have seen that every feature, so for instance, polymorphism or quantification on functions or quantification on propositions and so on, was corresponding to the addition of a number of constants and rules. Okay, and so like this, you can build type theories or logics, in a modular way, depending on the constants and rules that you add in your system. But you can wonder which other kind of features we can also add like this, because in usual proof assistance, you do not have only types, and you have many more things, like recursive functions, for instance. So how to represent recursive functions into lambda pi. So we have rewriting, so we can represent computations that are done in the source system and using rewriting in the lambda pi calculus with the rewriting. Okay. But there are many different ways to do this. And currently we don't have a nice general theory for this. So a nice way to help in improving the interpretability is probably to use recursors. Okay. And systems like Agda or they do not use recursors. They use pattern matching. So you need to encode definitions by pattern matching into definitions based on. So this is an interesting topic. Also, in various systems, it's possible to quantify not just on types, but also on universes. Okay? We have seen that, for instance, in Agda or Lean, you have an infinite hierarchy of universes. And it's possible to actually use variables for universes and quantify on those variables. And how to handle this? I already mentioned it's more complicated because then you have to handle the max operator on universes, which has a number of algebraic properties, including associativity and commutativity. And so in this case, you need in the logical framework to reason modulo those properties. And so in this case, you can use, for instance, rewriting with matching modulo AC or some special rewriting strategy in order to be able to prove that two universes are equivalent. It's also possible to handle eta conversion on functional types. Or I already mentioned, so predicate subtyping with top events, as it is used, for instance, in the PVS processes. And finally, so it's in fact easy to handle also co-infective objects or co-reduction using rewriting. And that's it. So I finished earlier. So we have time for questions.
So can you handle, for example, extensional type theory as an objective? I guess it's a bit like asking how do you do like theories with general recursion. Maybe that's even worse because or maybe another way to ask the question, so what if you want to represent your conversion relation or rewriting relation of your object theory as an explicit relation in deductive rather than using the rewriting system of deductive?
So extensional type theory is not decidable. Okay.
Yeah.
And what you get in deductive, if your real system is confluent, terminating, and so on, so it's decidable. So it means that if you can represent this, it's not with a terminating system. And so there are some other problems. So I mean, so perhaps you can give some encoding of derivations, okay? But not for typeable terms. I mean, terms that you could type using extensionality.
I mean, as elements of answer to English, I mean, you can represent conversion in your object theory by a relation. The problem then becomes how to generate those terms easily, because then when you work with your object theory, you have to prove that everything is convertible whenever you need it, and it's possible to generate it and starting from derivations in your object theory. It's not that easy. It's by seeing repetition. It's possible.
But when you handle eta, you do some clever rewriting trick to get eta rather than making explicit conversion relation.
Yeah, so it's yes, eta for function types. It's a little bit special. You can handle this at the price of. I mean, adding some symbol that will do all the eta expansions that you need. So the problem is to handle, I mean, polymorphic variables, because when you instantiate, then it can become a function type that you don't know at the beginning.
Yeah.
So you have to anticipate this. And the problem with this is that you get big terms quickly.
Can you handle eta for the unit?
So this is, well, it's not clear how to handle this. So probably we need I'm not sure we can do this with just standard rewriting. Perhaps we need some conditional rewriting. But yeah,
But when you
it's
do
about,
the rewriting, you don't know about the types.
yes, indeed.
But you could, because everything is well timed. I mean, when you write the rewriting rules, you still know about the types, but once you do the rewriting, you forget.
Yes, completely. So the rewriting is untyped.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why we need to check beforehand. I mean, whether it was typing.
Yeah.
So it's much more efficient in terms of implementation, because if you have to do some type checking each time you want to apply your rule, then it's a nightmare. Okay. But there are also some nice strategies. Perhaps we could try to implement, as Andrzej talked about before, to have a specific phase to handle extensional equalities for doing the reduction.
Is it obviously new handle and definition of computer?
Yes, no. So at the moment, so for instance, in the case of PVS, so we can use a restricted form of, we can encode a restricted form of proof irrelevance in sigma types. Okay, so when you have dependent pairs, and the second component of the pair is a proof, then we know how to represent this using standard rewriting in lambda pi. But it's not clear yet how to handle general proof irrelevance.
This is going to be a huge bottleneck for translating view code.
So
I think they use this.
Yeah, so we have two. We have a strategy to handle this. So the first one is to replace the implicit uses of proof irrelevance in type conversion by the application of the explicit application of an axiom. Okay. And it works. I mean, so we can do this. Yes. And it's interesting to see where proof irrelevance is actually used. It's not everywhere, okay? But it's we still have some to handle very large libraries like Matlib, but we can do this for the standard library. And perhaps another solution is to use that I discussed very recently with Rich, who is working on this topic, is to use conditional rewrite. But then we have a number of theoretical results about how to prove confiance on termination of standard rewriting, and I will discuss this, show you this tomorrow. But there are very few results known about conditional rewriting in type theory. So, but this will be less interesting. Some other question? Okay, so
what other type theories do you plan to work on? I heard about theoretical type theory.
Yes, so Nicolas is working on theoretical type theory.
What about the observational type theory?
Why not? Yes. I mean, all this we like very much all type theories, all purpose.
How much work do you expect for mean, do you expect that you just have to find clever tricks, or do you really need new ideas?
No, it's not
just.
just, I mean, I think it's deeper than this. I mean, it's not just a trick. There are something deeper here. But then there is the theory, okay, so how to represent all these theories, lambda writing, but this is quite interesting. But there is also a very practical problem, because in the end, what we want is to translate actual proofs, okay, so like one libraries like Mathlib, like AFP for Isabelle, like everything you can find for code on OPAM, for instance. How to handle efficiently, I mean, to translate efficiently this kind of libraries. And this is also a source of some other problems. How to handle this. Okay, so perhaps we can stop now. Thank you.